Welcome to the Midlife Mavericks podcast, where we empower men in their prime to redefine what it means to thrive beyond 40. Join us as we navigate the complexities of midlife, offering insights, strategies, and inspiration to reclaim your health, vitality, and purpose. From personal stories of transformation to expert interviews and actionable tips, each episode is designed to support you on your journey to live the best life in your midlife and beyond. Get ready to unleash your inner maverick and embrace the adventure of aging with grace, strength, and purpose. Midlife Mavericks, welcome back. Today's episode is all about finding purpose, creating balance, and building a life you truly love. We've got a special guest joining us today who embodies this journey perfectly, Caspar Chittenden. Caspar is a fellow midlife maverick who's been on quite a ride, from real estate to fitness and ultimately to life coaching. But it's not just about the career changes. We'll be diving deep into Caspar's pivotal moments, the courage it took to embrace change, and how he learned to align his values with his purpose. If you're feeling stuck in a rut, you're not alone. Many men in midlife face challenges like finding balance and defining their next chapters. Caspar's here to share his insights and practical tips on overcoming common midlife obstacles, harnessing the power of vision and goal setting, bridging the gap between your goals and your daily actions, how coaching can unlock your potential for self-discovery and growth. Get ready to be inspired. This episode is packed with actionable takeaways to help you realign your life with your values and goals. Buckle up, grab a notebook or your phone, and let's embark on this journey together with Caspar Chittenden. Caspar, welcome to the Midlife Mavericks podcast.
Thank you, Stretch. It's great to be here with you this morning. And I'm excited about our conversation.
Mate, I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. We've known each other for a little while now, and we've known each other's journey and stuff like that. And hopefully we can dive into that a little bit and learn a lot more about, your own health journey, your own, I suppose, career journey as well. But just to kick things off, mate, it's a question I sometimes ask at the start of the podcast. If you and I were to sit next to each other on an airplane, the first part of that question is, where would that airplane be going? Do you have a favorite holiday destination or something on the bucket list that you want to tick off?
That's a great question. It's an interesting question. Definitely caught me off guard a little bit there. Where would I go? Somewhere which has been on the top of my bucket list destination, I guess you could say, for a while has been Bhutan. I've always been really fascinated by the country and its culture and its beauty, and that it's relatively restricts tourism, and that's pretty fascinating. I'd love to visit.
Nice, mate. Sounds like a very interesting destination. All right, so we're sitting on this plane and we spark up a conversation of your purpose and passion. If I was to ask you about your purpose and passion right now, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, my passion really is about optimal well-being. I started out in my career, I guess, in health and well-being as a coach, as a personal trainer, rather, as a all around helping people improve their well-being through physical health and well-being, I guess. And so my passion really is about helping people achieve optimal well-being. And now as a life coach, that's more orientated around being well in every area of your life rather than just your physical health and well-being.
Yeah, nice one, mate. I'm looking forward to unpacking that a little bit more. Like I've known you since, I can't remember what year it would have been, but back in London days, it would have been maybe around 2010, 2012, maybe around that time, I think we first met. Yeah. And you were co-owner to a CrossFit gym in London, same as myself at the time. What got you into PT, or what took you down that path of being a personal trainer / gym owner / coach?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stretch. I guess for me, it all started whilst I was living in Argentina, and I'll bring this way back. I must have been 23. I was living in Buenos Aires, living a pretty unhealthy life. I'd been really fit and healthy and active kind of growing up, and played rugby at quite a high level, swam at quite a high level. I was a fit and healthy individual. And then I left school and I just stopped doing any exercise because it wasn't provided for me, and I didn't really know much about training within the walls of a gym. And I remember really clearly, like the day it all changed. I was lying on my sofa, just kind of sprawled out after being at work all day, and I had a couple of bottles of beer to my left hand side, and I was picking some crisp crumbs out of my belly button, and I thought to myself, something's got to change. I don't like the trajectory of this, and it doesn't look good. And so I decided that I needed to do something about it. But I was really unfamiliar with with training again, with training within the four walls of a gym. So I took up boxing. I found a boxing gym in Buenos Aires. This really cool space run by an ex middleweight champion in the 70s, and it was an awesome space. It was like a basement gym covered with boxing memorabilia and photos all over all the walls, and it was kind of operated like circuit style. You would start at one end of the gym and hit the bag for a round, and then the bell would go, and you would which signified your kind of rest period, and then you go back into another bag, and you slowly work your way through this gym, and it would probably take about an hour and 15 minutes, and then finish on a bit of core work and a bit of bike and a bit of cool down. And as I progressed, I started to get into actually sparring, and it was great. And what I didn't know at the time was I was doing interval training, relatively high intensity interval training, and alongside that, I started to look at my diet. I cleaned up my diet. I cleaned up my sleep, my sleep hygiene. I started to take sleep a little bit more seriously. And the results that I started to see were incredible. I got really fit, like in a relatively quick period of time. And I loved it. I loved going into that space. I loved meeting, new people and people that I wouldn't usually meet in my day to day in Buenos Aires. I was working in corporate real estate, and the characters that I met in that boxing gym were pretty awesome. And so, yeah, that was my kind of first taste of group training, I guess, and I loved it. And it was so different, and it was very different than stepping into an unfamiliar gym, on my own without like a training program and not really knowing what to do. And then I met an American guy. We soon became good friends, and he was really fit, really healthy, a real athlete. Athlete is just the word I would use. And he said to me, "Have you ever heard of this thing called CrossFit?" And the first thing that sprung to my mind was like one of those cross trainers, things you get on and you pump your arms and your legs. And I thought, God, I looked at the guy, I was like, this guy can't be getting fit on a cross trainer. I was like, no, man, what's CrossFit? And he kind of tried to explain it to me, and I was like, yeah, I kind of get it. It's like a mixture of like body weight exercises, gymnastics, weightlifting, kettlebells, and some endurance. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And he said, look, let's meet up. Let's go to the park. I've got a couple of kettlebells and a skipping rope, and I'll put a workout together. And I thought, great, let's do it. And we turned up. We met up, and I remember being absolutely drilled, but I loved it. Really fun, really creative way of putting exercises together, and in a time format or a task format. And I loved it. And Max shared with me, he said, I'm really interested in opening a CrossFit gym here in Argentina. And I said, what, there are gyms around this kind of methodology of training? And he was like, yeah, man, in the States, it's becoming a big thing. I was like, great. I'm interested. And he said, look, to start, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a community, a fitness community, and start doing workouts here in the park. And that became massive. There were definitely 50, 60 people turning up on the daily in the park in Buenos Aires, and this really amazing fitness community emerged. And yeah, I loved it. Again, I kind of then started to transition from boxing over to I guess the kind of early model of group training and high intensity interval training, I guess. And then from there, a gym opened up in Buenos Aires, a CrossFit gym, and it happened to be a couple of blocks from where I was living. And I remember going down there and seeing the space being built, and I was like, wow, this looks amazing. And it was in this big warehouse, and I spoke to the guys. I just said, when you opening up? And they said, we should be opening up in about 6 weeks' time. And I put my name down as a member, as a founding member. And yeah, that was it was next level. I remember, it's just about learning all these new skills and tracking your weight and seeing yourself progressing over time, and the community that was built there. And it gave so much to me, I got so much from it. I was, fitter, stronger, healthier, getting better sleep, eating better. It improved my life so much. And it gave me such value. Like I noticed that I was, mentally more, sharper, more acute. And I was just feeling better, moving better. And that impacted every area of my life, right? It had a huge impact on me. And I thought to myself, one day I might want to do something like this. And as well, from a business perspective, being in real estate, I looked at this warehouse and I knew how much they were renting it for, and I kind of totted up the numbers in my head, and I was like, this looks like a pretty solid business model. I like it. Yeah, and then a little later on, a couple of years later, and we're talking probably 2010, 2011, my father passed away really suddenly. And it was an extremely difficult period of my life. I flew back to England, to be with my family, and then I came back to Argentina a month and a half later to essentially like pack down my life there, and during that time, I was at a bit of a fork in the road, even before my father had passed away. I was starting to think about moving away from Argentina. I'd been out there for about 6.5 years at that time, and I was wanting to make some changes, some more changes in my life. And I knew that I didn't want to be there, kind of going into my into my 30s and potentially into my 40s. My business partner, sorry, my boss, wanted to make me a partner in his business, and that's a big commitment. And I thought to myself, this is great, but I could wind up here for a really, really long time, really far away from my family. And so I decided that I was going to move back to England. And then shortly after arriving back in Argentina to kind of finish out my stretch of time there, I broke my ankle. I was running for a taxi in the rain, and I just left a meeting, and I was wearing leather bottom shoes, and I was strided out, and I put my foot down, and my ankle just twisted underneath me, and I just went straight through it, dislocated it, broke it, and smashed it to pieces. Get to the taxi, and the driver goes, "Where are you going to?" And I said, "Take me to hospital." So get in the car, go to hospital, and I've got this smashed up ankle, and yeah, I was forced to slow down, like really slow down. And I was grieving for my father. I was on the kind of edge of this big change. I knew that I was going to be moving back to England. I couldn't exercise. All of a sudden I was immobilized. I couldn't do anything. And that space allowed me a lot of time to think really deeply about what it is that I wanted to do. I had the time to ponder. I remember spending a lot of time like staring out of my window, with this broken ankle. I couldn't load, I couldn't weight bear on my left side on my left foot for, I think it was about 4 or 5 months. So I was completely immobilized, and I couldn't do anything, couldn't ride my bike, couldn't go to the gym, couldn't walk, couldn't really do much for myself. And I spent a lot of time just kind of in my head, really kind of going through it. It was a very painful time. It was a struggle. And I thought to myself, I want to move back to England, but I want to go back and for it to be on my terms. I want to work for myself. I want to become self-employed, and I want to help people achieve optimal levels of health and well-being through fitness. I'd got so much from being part of this gym and being in this environment. It had helped me make a huge transformation in my life, and I wanted to bring that to other people. So I decided that I was going to leave real estate, and I was going to retrain as a personal trainer, and that's what I did. I moved back to England, and I started at the bottom, and I was 28 years old at the time, and a lot of my friends around me were like, they were starting to make big strides in their career, and there I was, like, making a massive change and just basically starting at the bottom again, and I remember picking up, all the hours at gyms that people didn't want, like afternoons on a Friday, the Sunday morning, the Monday morning, all the hours that people like didn't want to do. That was me picking them up. And I started at a CrossFit gym in North London. And I was living in West London at the time, and I was riding my bike like an hour to get up there in the morning, first thing, and riding all over. And then I started working at a gym in Kilburn. It's where I met my business partners for Three Aces. And so I was kind of cycling all over the place, doing all these hours. But I had this dream, this vision in my mind that I wanted to open my own gym. That was what I wanted to do. I had real estate experience, I had business experience, and I was getting fitness experience. And I wanted to really be and understand like what it took to run a gym, and that meant like being a coach within a gym and working direct with the clients and just kind of seeing how the business operated as a member of a team, basically. So I got a lot of experience, and I started to understand, okay, well, what's working within the gym businesses that I was in, and what's not working. So by the time it came for us to open our own gym, we were like, this is how we're going to do it, and this is not how we're going to do it. So I met my two business partners, Rich and Mark Brockhurst, who are also coaches at the gym that I was working at in Kilburn, and I guess our values were in alignment, and our principles were in alignment, and our vision was in alignment. And so we set about looking for a piece of real estate to open up our gym, which was really hard. It took about a year, maybe a bit longer than a year, to find the right place. And finally, we found this Ep6 space in southeast London, two big railway arches and a yard. And we opened that space up. I think it was in June 2015. We opened up Three Aces, and we started as a CrossFit gym, Three Aces CrossFit. And it was a dream come true. We were living it, and we built it with our bare hands. We laid the floor. We built the front desk with the help of one of our members who is a carpenter. We built the changing rooms, and it was a real labor of love. We painted all the walls, and it was we hand painted the logo at the back of the gym, and we slowly started building that business. And so that's my journey into health and well-being. It was quite a journey.
Yeah, interesting, mate. There's 2 points there I'd like to roll one back to. There's the time where you're sitting in Argentina after you've lost your dad, and you're sort of really thinking about your future. And then it's also probably the time where you're working for someone else in the gym and really starting to plan your own gym. Like, are they the sort of first points in your life where you actually did some real sort of visioning and thinking about, okay, who do I want to become? What sort of life do I want? Where am I heading?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Stretch. I think, I remember it really clearly, being back in Argentina with this broken ankle, and there was a lot of soul searching. There was a lot of space for soul searching. I really want to bring that into the conversation. There was space to have that thinking. I wasn't just doing the everyday tasks that I needed to, that needed to be done. There was there was a there was a space where I could actually go inside and start to ask myself these deeper questions, like, who do I want to become? What is my purpose? And these answers started to emerge. I started to join the dots. I'm like, well, this is an area of my life that I'm truly passionate about. I love everything to do with fitness and health, and I'd love to play that forward in some way. I'd love to help others achieve what I'm experiencing, and achieve the transformation that I've experienced through being really consistent, and committed to my health and well-being. And so that was a time when I really kind of went inwards, and I guess the first time that I'd really asked myself, like, what do I want, rather than what do others expect of me. And I think that when I had chosen my career in real estate, it was like, well, this is what everybody else is doing, and this is what I think will make me successful in some way. And I hadn't really questioned, like, what do I want before that point. And that space, and I guess like the age that I was at, I was sort of 27, 28, and starting to gain some more like independence in some way. I kind of tested my water, or tested the water rather, and there's a really interesting or quite funny quote by Joseph Campbell. He said, when you climb to the top of the ladder and realize it's propped up against the wrong wall. And that's kind of where I was at. I like got to the top of this like real estate ladder, and I'd be like, yeah, the view up here is pretty good, but it's not the view that I want, So I took my ladder and propped it up against a new wall, and started to climb that one.
Yeah, awesome, mate. What a crazy time it must have been with all that sort of stuff going on, and like such a big transition in your life. But then to get back to the UK, to follow that passion or that vision that you had to get into fitness, work for someone else, and then get to the point where now you're owning your own gym, building it with love, putting in all the work to get it up and growing. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey of being a gym owner? Working with business partners, serving that sort of community, and then maybe why you decided to leave that field or leave that space when you did.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, how was it? It was exciting, and it was stressful. Especially when we first opened, we'd put down a big chunk of our own money to get this business off the floor. And so we needed to find members quickly, So the pressure was on to fill the gym. And, thankfully, our efforts paid off. We got a really solid number of members in pretty quickly that helped us pay our running costs. And then from there, it was just kind of a slow build over the months and years. And, we changed as well as a gym, and we're really heavily influenced by Ep6, formerly known as OPT, and James Fitzgerald, and the team of coaches that work with him. And we all took the CCP, which is the Coaches Certificate Program. And actually, that was where I had my first taste of life coaching. I remember going on a training weekend, and the module was life coaching. So that's where I was first introduced to coaching. But I'll rewind it a little bit. So how was it? Yeah, it was amazing. There was a lot of fun. There were challenges, of course, as there are in any business. There were sacrifices that needed to be made. There were late nights, there were early mornings. There were problems that needed to be overcome. Within our first year, I think it was maybe just after our first year, the opportunity came around to open up a second gym location up in Lee Valley Athletic Centre, which was the other side of London from our gym in Southeast London in Kennington. But the opportunity was so good that we wanted to snap it up in this amazing, athletic centre, to have a really incredible strength and conditioning gym, kind of in the middle of an indoor track and an outdoor track, and athletes kind of running around everywhere. We were like, right, we've got to do this. We did it, but we did it with a really small team, which stretched us. It stretched us a lot. And I can remember, all of us, really struggling with that, really struggling with the hours, being split between two locations across London. And also, the everyday running of both those gyms. It's not just about the hours on the training floor. It's all the admin, and it's all the marketing and managing of members, and keeping the community strong within both those spaces. It really stretched us, and we had to make some adjustments in like our systems and operations to give us some space, really. And if I think back at it, we were all really burnt out at the time, but we managed to like change up some systems and how we were operating to kind of create more space, and that was a big lesson there, and that was the first real lesson around like, okay, actually making sure that you're physically and mentally in a good place to operate a business well is really important. Making sure that you're well rested and you're not overstretched. Over time it's really challenging, to operate at like, at the edge for months. It's okay once in a while. We can dig deep and need it if we need to get like a project across the line and we're meeting a deadline, to go into those reserves and then be able to recover. But we were like at that edge for months, and it really was, it was really, really challenging. But I learned a lot from that. So yeah, it was a great journey. We had a wonderful time, and as I said, it did come with its challenges, but I don't think any business operates without its challenges, right? And we worked very, very well as a team. We had great members. We had a really solid group of members who had been with us for years. Some people who had come and go, but we had a really great community. And then during lockdown, again, I started to experience, some bubbling, coming up within me, and that's how I sort of describe it. It's this sort of, I don't know, the something was coming through, right? And a question that arose was, is this what you want to be doing into your 40s? And the answer was no, which was kind of alarming, to be honest. And I was finding myself, having these, insights, and then coming back into the gym, back into that kind of operation, and with this kind of itch, which was kind of going on. And it wasn't that I didn't love what we had created, and it was more around that I wanted something different. I didn't want to be in London anymore. I didn't want to have a bricks and mortar business anymore. I wanted to be able to move around. I wanted to work with people at a deeper level. I think that was like one of the main things. And I'd had these realizations and these insights once we'd had space. Again, it's like that. Those lockdowns provided that space for me to again ask myself the question: is like, who do I want to become? Like, what direction do I want to go in? And the answers sort of started to surface a little bit. And so I had a conversation with my business partner, Rich. I think it was probably in like the summer of 2020. And I shared with him that, I was going to step back from the business. And it was a, yeah, it was a big move, and what really well received from Rich. And then we had a really like solid plan of how I was going to exit, and it worked for him and it worked for me. And so I had experienced life coaching myself. I'd done this training module with Ep6 a couple of years beforehand. But what was really interesting was that of the clients that I had, my one-on-one clients that I was working with at the time, we were talking probably 15% training, 15% nutrition, and 70% was what's robbing you of your peace. And those were the conversations that we were having, and that was the stuff that was lighting me up. Like, I was like, what's keeping you awake at night? Let's talk about that. I'm not interested in bicep curls and and how much protein you're eating, because that's the thing that's really messing you up, right? Like, you're super stressed out, you're coming home, you're drinking every evening because you're stressed out, and that helps, and there's no judgment there. And then you're not sleeping well, and we're trying to talk about fixing that with sleep protocols. I'm like, no, let's talk about what's driving that stress, and let's go to the root and see if we can transform that. And that's where I was getting the most amount of impact. So once that box was opened, I was like, I can't close this. I know that's the direction that I want to go in. And I know that's how I want to be impacting people. It's by having these deeper conversations. And so it all started to align for me. It was my desire of wanting to help people at a deeper level. I wanted to leave London. I wanted to have access to the countryside. I really need to be around and immersed in nature. And I also wanted to operate a business that was mobile, essentially. I didn't want to have a fixed location. I want to be able to work wherever I have an internet connection. So life coaching really made sense for me. But it was a big leap stretch, I had spent 10 years building this vision, 10 years of commitment to get to this point. And, the dream that I had, the vision that I had when I was in Argentina nursing a broken ankle, what I created had surpassed that. It massively surpassed that. I sort of had this idea in my mind and a sort of vision of what it could like, but what we achieved was beyond that. I'm so proud of what we did build. And I'm so proud of the lives that we affected and the community that we built, because it's, it was a strong one, and a lot of great friendships were built there. A lot of great times I had there. And we really powerfully impacted people's lives through the methodology that we imparted on the training floor. We were very much around sustainable training, rather than just your clang and bang, roll them in, roll them out. We really paid attention to what we were prescribing our members on the training floor, and giving them really good quality lifestyle guidelines for outside of the gym. So super proud, but it was a leap stepping away from that. When I made that decision, and it scared me. It really scared me. I was like, okay. I mean, an analogy that was really front and center for me at the time, it was almost like opening a door into a void, and just having the faith and the courage to step through that door and jump, and trust that the net will appear, And so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was.
On
It
that,
was good
Caspar,
stuff.
like it's an interesting sort of point that you bring up there, and it's like we can see there's the value shifting. Like obviously, when you were working as a real estate agent and wanting to get into fitness, your values were changing, and you had this vision, and you set yourself these goals to have the gym and work in fitness, and you realized that, and you achieved that in London, and then obviously there's been another shift in values and beliefs at that time. Like you're working in something that you love, but at the end of the day something's boiling up inside of you, making you rethink your decisions and where you want to be for the next 10, 20 years of your life. And it is a big change. And you talk then just about like courage and bravery and being able to step into that void. How do you think you achieve that? Because I think there's a lot of guys out there, that want to make change in their life. And there's that fear of like, I can't do it or I'm stuck in the position where I am. Like, can you offer any advice around that, or can you share a little bit of your insight with that journey?
Yeah, I think, and thanks for bringing that into this space, Stretch. I think that what I had at that time was proof. I'd done it twice already. When I was 21, I moved to Argentina with a dream, and I'm gonna go and make this happen, and I did. And then when I left Argentina, I said, I want to go and make this happen, and I did. So when it came to leaving the gym and stepping away from that, it's like I have significant proof that I'm capable of doing this because I've done it before. But I understand not everybody has made those leaps, But it's courage, and it's also following your heart. It was listening to this rather than this. There's a shitload of doubt and a lot of story around you can't, what are people going to think of you? You're what, how old was I at the time? I was 36. I was 36 years old, and I'm about to like make a bold career move again. I was going to start at the bottom again, but I'm like, I don't care. Like this means so much to me. Like, how can I sit in something knowing that it's not the right thing and just continue to do it over and over again? Who am I serving here? I'm not serving any of the people in front of me. Like, if my heart's not in it, like, what? Why? And the excitement, and it's transformation. It's what we're talking about. This is transformation in real time. It's like it's not always easy. It can be scary. It is edgy. You come up against a growth edge and you step over that edge. And but the advice to give to people is like, get still. Get still. Tune into this and see what's there. Ask yourself, what do you want? Like, truly and honestly, what do you want? And sit with the answer and share that answer with people, and start to create a plan, even if it's just a little bit. It doesn't all need to be I'm all in all at once. It might just be, okay, well, I'm going to start looking in this direction, maybe getting a training in, speaking to people who are already in that industry, and starting to at least like explore that. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, right, I'm quitting my job and I'm becoming a carpenter, you know?
Yeah, no, that's sound advice, mate. I really like it. I think, you talk about dipping your toe in the water before and just trying it out, and exploring those options. Like, what is it that you want? Who do you want to become? Looking ahead, getting that vision, building, those goals, and then trying to break it down into a plan, like you say. I really like that. And those steps are obviously transferred into, the career that you're doing now and the people that you're working with now. So let's fast forward. Let's talk about, your health coaching business now, and like, who do you work with? Who do you serve? What is the goal of, what you're trying to achieve now?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, who do I work with now? I work with entrepreneurs. Business owners and leaders. And the majority of my work is around helping those guys find balance and ease so they can operate from a place that is really effective. Essentially, that's what I do. And the guys that I work with are midlife, juggling a lot, spinning a lot of plates, a lot of responsibilities, not enough time, They're pulled in multiple different directions. They're very ambitious people. Sometimes, multiple businesses running at the same time. And I help them create space in their lives so they can create really powerful choices and decisions day after day from a place that is really centered.
Yeah, wicked, mate. I can see how that ties in nicely to, I suppose, your own journey and the
Yeah.
experiences that you've had along the way, especially, being an entrepreneur and owning the gym, working to burn out, like you sort of said, probably taking on too many responsibilities,
Yeah.
that overload. And then I suppose the big key turning points in your life have been when you've created space, like when you've broken your ankle or when you've had COVID lockdowns, that you've actually had that space to sit down and think about, okay, what's truly important to me, what's meaning, what's mindset, what's happening for
Yeah.
me. Obviously, when you approach these guys or when you start working with these guys, like they're in a mindset already where they're just like work, 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 career, 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 or responsibility, responsibility. You talk about space. How do you help them create space?
That's a great question, Stretch. And yeah, there's something around that. It's like, I think there's this cultural narrative. Before I get into that and answer that question, there's a bit of a cultural narrative that's running around like more equals better. Like if I just work harder, I'm going to get better results. Nope, not true. Like honestly, it's not. And that's a message that I'm here to share with people, that like just pushing and pushing and pushing like can work sometimes for a little bit, but like it usually leads to some sort of burnout. So how do I help create space? Well, by working with me, people are making a big commitment first up, and the commitment that I ask them to make is slow down. You know, creating pockets of time during their day where they're not connected to their phone, and then they're coming home to themselves. And this usually looks like a morning routine and an evening routine. So it's just kind of being aware that actually creating these small pockets of space is the compounding effect of that space over time that can yield a great result. And creating boundaries, really strong boundaries. Like when you say like when you say yes to something, what are you saying no to? What are you saying no to? So getting really, really clear on where they're spending their time and their energy. So asking questions around that, like what's a really good use of your time and what's sucking your energy. Let's remove all the energy sucking activities and get really, really boundaried around your time so that you can create space. I need to find time. No, you need to create time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that switch, mate. That's a powerful realization, I think, and the hustle culture that we're in, like just go, 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 go. And yeah, the more is better. It's definitely pulling us into all sorts of traps there. I'm curious,
Mm.
besides time, like what other challenges your clients facing in their life, or what other challenges do they present to you or come to you to help them with?
Yeah, stress is a big one. Stress is a big one for sure, especially the kind of demographic is, a lot, like I said, a lot of these guys are, they're juggling a lot. So they're usually very stressed out. The majority, I would say, were highly stressed. So there's a lot of work to be done around, like not just slowing down, but like really kind of bringing in practices that start to like center and ground people into stillness, essentially. And from that place is where you can make really good quality decisions, because a lot of like, I mean, the best way to put this is like, ask yourself the question is what is the quality of my, what are, let me rephrase this. Maybe you could edit this bit out. The quality of your decisions made from a place of stress, how high quality are those decisions? And if you're stressed out all the time and you're just stacking poor quality decisions and choice making on top of each other, it's like that's not going to have the best result over time. So actually creating that space, slowing down, creating those boundaries around the time and energy, so that they can start to operate from a place of clarity, is really, really effective. So again, a big challenge is stress. So there's a lot of like stress reduction protocols that are included in the work that I do with my clients.
Do you think your clients know how stressed they are? Do they come to you and present with that? Okay, I'm really stressed. I need your help to get unstressed, or
Yeah.
is that something that they start to realize when they sit down and start doing coaching with you, and then off the back of that, like, how do you help them see that?
It's a really great question, Stretch. I mean, the trouble is with stress, and the difficult thing with it is that as humans, um, we're in, we have this amazing capacity to adapt to stress over time. And so my baseline versus somebody else's baseline could be completely different. Like we all perceive stress differently. And you can adapt to stress, you know, you adapt to it over time. So it can be quite difficult for somebody to understand and realize that they're actually in a really stressed out sympathetic state. So yeah, I mean it's usually unfolded in a conversation. You know, the questions that I'll ask around, you know, their sleep quality, their mindset is usually like a good giveaway, and how comfortable they are just not doing anything. And that's also another really good giveaway, because people who are in that like really fast light turnover, you say sit down for 10 minutes without phone and without any stimulation, and they'll be like "Ugh," like some steam kind of coming off their head, not literally, but like you know, it's challenging if you're really like, you know, and
Yep.
you're really in this kind of sympathetic state, forward doing constantly doing mode, to just be still. And it takes time to kind of what I say, like deload and 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 regulate yourself.
Yeah, I like that, mate. I think it's a good realization. I think we are also go, 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 and we're just so connected all the time. You know, you talk about your phone, we talk about the internet, we talk about
Yeah.
just everything. We're so connected. When do we find time to create that space or just sit and actually allow the body to just be still? It's an incredible thing. Now, I'd like to rewind a little bit because I know that you do a lot of goal setting and vision setting with your clients. And, you know, you
Yeah.
talked about your own visions and your own goals as you've gone through your journey. How important is it to get clear on the vision, and whereabouts do you put that in the coaching journey?
It's everything. Yeah, it's everything. I think that it's futile. Like, you know, not having, it's like not having a destination. Like, you know, you've got to know the destination. It's so important. So usually, not usually, this is how I work with clients. First up, we start with an assessment. I use the Circle of Life, which is a tool. It's really straightforward. It's a kind of scale of 1 to 10 over like a multitude of different areas in your life. You know, health, wellness, career, finances, etc. And so we get a kind of a bit of a reading of where they're at, you know, in terms of like how balanced they are in a multitude of different areas in their lives. And then from there is the vision work, which is, I think it's deep. You know, it is a deep process, and the the exercise, I guess we could call it, or the process invites an individual to, you know, create space to sit down and to really tune in and to start to ask themselves questions around like, what is my vision for my career? What is my vision for my health? What is my vision for my finances? What is my vision for my relationships? And like being really, really honest with oneself and writing it down, and without any limitation, you know, void of limitation. No, like I can't, but like, oh, I can't do that, or I should do this. None of that. It's just as straight up like, what do I want? And that essentially creates a North Star. It creates a destination. And then from there, I help bridge the gap between where they are now and this destination. And every day, the choices that we make will either push us towards this or away from it. And that's why it's important to be still and to be present with the type of decisions that you're making. It's like decisions which are authentic and honest to who you want to become, rather than what should I do or
Mm,
what's expected of me. And yes, we all have responsibilities and there are
mm,
things expected of us, but it's so important to understand, like, what is the destination, and is that destination aligned with your values, right? Because the more you can align your values with your destination, the easier it's going to be. Like, I don't need to force myself to get up. Oh, I've got a coach day. No, I fucking love it. Like, this is what I'm about. Like, getting up and going to work for me is a joy. Like, Monday weekends for me, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm out of purpose. Can't wait for the week. I can't wait for the week. I can't wait to get into conversation. I can't wait to help people like move the dial. Like, that is awesome. Like, to live in that way, it's so, for me personally, it's so fulfilling. You can see I'm very lit up by it. And so
mm.
so my North Star is like all around my values. I'm like so connected to that. So again, we'd start to talk about like, well, what are your values? And we have a values process that we run through as well. Like, really start to identify that. And like, I'm sure, and I know that you've done a values exercise yourself, Stretch. But a lot of people haven't. And it's like real, like 101 stuff for us as coaches. It's like, oh yeah, of course. Like, of course we know our values, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people have been given their
Yeah,
values,
yeah.
but they haven't explored them themselves.
Yeah, I think our society, mate, as a society, we're sort of told what our values should be. And we set ourselves on that journey. You talked about it being the real estate and climbing the corporate ladder and, achievement and what is success and how do you measure success? They're all powerful questions to sort of relate back to. And I
Yeah,
think, we have those values sometimes forced on us, whether that could be by our parents, whether it could be by our friends, whether it's society, and we just accept that. But when do we actually create that space to sit down and ask that question? And I suppose that's where coaching can be really valuable,
yeah,
because it does create that opportunity, or it does create that window of space
yeah,
where the coach is going to ask you, well, what are your
yeah,
values? What are your visions? Who is the person you want to become? And are you
yeah,
living true to that? And
yeah,
if not, why not? Like,
yeah,
if that's who you want to get to. I'm
100%.
curious, you're working with these entrepreneurs and you're working with these men who want to change their life. When you sit down and do this sort of visioning thing, can you give us an example of like what's something that might come up, or what's sort of common with the people you're working with?
Before I answer that question, I just want to build on what you were saying there, Stretch. And I think that like when we're
Mm,
when we're unconscious, there's like an unconscious when we're not connected, or we're unconsciously moving through life, adhering to the values of our friends, society, parents, and when we're not connected, unconsciously connected to our values, that's where dis-ease can settle in. It's like people are like turning up and doing, they're going to a job that they're no longer fulfilled by, and it's not connected to their values that they haven't yet explored. That's where you can get some disconnect and tension. That's my theory anyway, right?
mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah, I like that, mate. I think there's a lot behind that. It's like, we're ticking the boxes in our health when we talk about physical fitness, and we're talking about nutrition, and we're talking about sleep, like you sort of said before. But what's the emotional side, or what's the inner story that we're telling ourselves? And how is that affecting our life and our health and our consciousness and our being? Like, there's a
Yeah,
lot, that goes on underneath that, what I don't think a lot of people, especially men, connect with. And I think it's great that you're helping them by creating that space and really asking those deep questions so that they can start to tune in and
yeah,
look deeper than just the physical.
yeah, 100%. And that's where the magic happens. Honestly, like when you can start lining those values up with, with your North Star and your day-to-day actions, like everything comes into flow. Like life starts like becoming easier and less stressful, and just, you're just removing all the barriers, like, to that
Mm.
vision. And it's just, it's a wonderful process. Honestly, it's great. But examples, I mean,
Life
obviously,
changing, mate.
yeah, it's life changing. obviously, like, you know, I there's a lot of confidentiality like in the work that I do with my clients, so I'm just a bit conscious of that. But to generalize, like the vision process delivers a lot of aha light bulb moments. You know, it really starts to uncover the truth. And sometimes that truth can be a little bit painful. You know, it's not all like, oh, amazing, like we're doing this vision work and, you know, I've come across this thing. It can happen. And like, that's really great. But then there's also like realizations like the relationship that I'm in, the job that I'm in, the choices that I've made over the past 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's like it can reflect back some pretty hard things. Yeah. So it's not all sunshine and roses, but it's a process and a commitment, and it yields truth, and that's why it's so powerful. And yeah, I mean, I've run many clients through it, and it always yields powerful truth, but it can be painful and also equally, and most of the time, just really exciting because it's like, okay, I forgive myself for like, making these choices in the past. That's fine. Forgive. But now we're in the present. We're just moving forward. And now that I know, like, okay, I've started to really uncover some exciting things. Like tomorrow I'm going to start taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it, mate. I think it becomes that sort of transition point, doesn't it? We have this realization and it's like, okay, maybe we've made mistakes in the past and we can dwell on that and get upset about that, but it ain't going to change the future necessarily. But when we step in and we start to realize that and we can have a vision for the future, like you say, it's giving us that guiding direction on what we should say yes to, what we should say no to, what the next steps are, what the actions are, what the plan is. And it can obviously create, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and just change our whole perspective in life. So we're not just going through the mundane day-to-day stuff. We're actually moving in a direction that we want to go.
Yeah.
I like it, mate. You've touched a little bit on sacrifice. So I think sometimes we talk about letting it go. Could you talk about that a little bit? Because obviously, we could talk about FOMO, we could talk about so many different things. There are just so many opportunities that we have in our life. Like we could go and do so many different things, and a new thing will always present itself, a new shiny object that could start to pull us in that direction. Can you talk to us about that sacrifice and saying no, and maybe a little bit about the alignment of values and visions and stuff around that, like making those decisions?
Yeah. I mean, personally, like once clarity is made around who you want to become, what you want to achieve, and how you want to experience your day to day, like, something comes up which is outside of alignment of that, it's about, your 80-20 rule. It's like I'm making a radical commitment to my health, but I also like, I want to spend time with my friends and family and enjoy myself. So yeah, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to go to a barbecue because, it's the food that's going to be served isn't in alignment with my like highest dietary needs, or like they'll be drinking and I can't be around like people drinking. Obviously, like there is some give and take, right? But I honestly feel that like once we have clarity on who we want to become, what we want to achieve, how we want to experience our day to day, it's like it's easy. It's like this is the path. These are the choices that I need to make, and it becomes exciting. You're like, okay, this is what I'm committing to, and if I commit to these practices, ways of being, looking at how like I might be getting in my way of achieving this end result or achieving the result that I desire, some forgiveness and some inner work on that. Like, okay, well, why am I doing things that are potentially sabotaging the result that I want to achieve? Okay, let's have a deeper look at that. But I think, in terms of sacrifice, I'm like, I don't actually think that that's the word that I would use. It's like once you have that clarity in that, and it's aligned with your your values and your purpose, there isn't a sacrifice. it's just the way.
Yeah, I like that, mate. I think about a conversation before with another guy on the podcast, and it's exactly the same around sacrifice. It doesn't really become a sacrifice because it's not something that aligns with the visions and values. So I'm not giving up anything because it's
No.
actually not something I'm even interested in.
Yeah.
If my visions or my North Star is that way, then that's the way I'm heading. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even
And it's
cross my
also
mind.
aligned
But
with like,
yeah,
sorry, go on.
no, keep going. You're right.
I mean, it's also like it because it's so aligned with like what you want. Like, why would you choose anything else? You've just created a powerful document on like this is what I really want. So why would you make a decision that's not in alignment with that? Like that would be weird. Like, oh, I'm just going to decide to do something that's not really part of like my dream. I'm just going to go do something else.
Yeah. I suppose sometimes there's bad habits to break. Like we've come, you talk about, okay, when we're setting those visions, it can be a bit of a slap in the face. We realize, for the last X amount of years, we've been doing this wrong. We've made these mistakes. And there could be some, we could say bad behaviors, or not, maybe they're not bad. They're just behaviors that we have that need to change.
Yeah,
And that can obviously take some time to
yeah,
break out of those behaviors and create new
yeah,
behaviors. What
yeah,
sort of advice would you have for people who do feel like they're stuck in that way
yeah,
of living or way of thinking, and how do we go about changing our behaviors?
yeah. I mean, the first question I would ask is, how is that behavior serving you? How has it served you?
That's a good question. And I
Let's
suppose
say,
they're going to have reasons behind that behavior.
let's say, for example, it's like I drink every night, and it's not a lot, but I drink every night. That behavior is serving you in some way. Maybe it's like stress. I'm stressed at the job, or I'm I'm disconnected in some way, and that's creating a sensation of like sadness, anger, fear, and this helps to numb that sensation out, right? So in some way, that behavior has served a purpose. It's kept us, in safety. You could look at it like that. Like behaviors are always in place because they serve in some way. Honestly, like that's kind of how it is, or at least that's how I think it is. Anyway, so you know, I see that a lot. Like especially if there's some type of like misalignment somewhere in somebody's lives, like an unhealthy behavior will surface as a coping mechanism for that. So once you start to get more in alignment with, this is my belief, once you start to get more in alignment with who you want to become, what you want to achieve, how you want to experience your day to day, like you can start to like these kind of maladapted behaviors, let's call them, do start to fall away because you write down, what is my vision for my health and well-being? And it may include like, I want to have better boundaries around drinking. I want to have a higher commitment to the food quality that I'm eating. And there's a why behind all of that. And so then you can start to kind of align that, and it all becomes a little bit more clear because you've connected it to the value and you have a vision around it. So yeah, behaviors and habits that are, I would call maladapted, yeah, they do start to sort of fall away. And I know this from my own experience, Stretch. It's not like it's not a theory. Like, I know that the times when
Mate,
I've
that
been
was
like,
that was going to be my next question.
yeah, it honestly, it's like,
I was gonna say, like, in your own journey, like, what do you feel was one of the hardest habits that you had to break?
yeah. I mean, I think for me, the one which kind of comes up the most is drinking. My relationship around
Mm.
alcohol since I've stepped into, stepped into this current vision and my role, and really got in tune with like who I want to become, how I want to experience my day to day, and what do I want to achieve, has changed dramatically. And I look back on it, and I look back on it in a way that's not like, oh, I'm really disappointed in myself for like drinking so regularly when it wasn't in alignment with my health goals. and this is why I brought it into the conversation earlier. It's like, but it did serve me at that point in my life. Like I was stressed out because I was stressed out, and like I was disconnected with something that was wanting to come through me and something that I wanted to create, you know? And that kind of created this like unconscious dis-ease within me. And I couldn't quite put my finger on like why I wasn't feeling so great within myself. But I knew that like I got home at the end of the day, I was like, oh, I'll just have like a couple of like small little beers and sort of that'll sort me out. Kind of dial down this like sense of dis-ease that I'm experiencing within myself. But that dis-ease, I couldn't like connect the dot between why I was feeling like that. And I guess I was, and it was difficult for me because I thought to myself, it's like, but I have a really high value on health and well-being, but why am I finding it so difficult to like put a beer down? Like, opportunities to go out and have, I was living in London and like social and go out to see friends. I'm like, yeah, a few beers is fine. It's all good. And it's fine. It is all good. But like, it was out of alignment with my health and well-being goals. But I'm like, why am I so drawn to this? And I think it was because it was serving me in some way. It was helping me like numb out this dis-ease that I was carrying. And now that like that dis-ease has gone because I'm in alignment, true alignment with where I want to go and my overall vision, that's disappeared. I don't have that like that sensation of like something's not right. I'm out of alignment in some way. And that was unconscious at the time. It became conscious and the habit's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting realization, isn't it? Because we just like fall into that habit of having a couple of cheeky beers or, whatever it is that we do. And we don't even realize how out of alignment it is. I like how you sort of said the 80-20 rule before, it's like maybe if you're having too many beers, like every night you're having a beer, well, that's not really 80-20, is it? And if
Yeah.
the goal is to improve my health and work towards a certain vision, it's obviously not keeping you in alignment there. The occasional beer with some mates, no harm done. But
Yeah.
in the long run, if it keeps going like this, what is going to be the impact on that value and on those visions and where you want to get to?
Yeah.
And it's a good realization to sort of pick up and then rein in, maybe that behavior a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to add here, just for our listeners, it's like I'm not gonna sit here and say that I don't drink. I do drink. I just don't have a drinking habit like I used to. I might go 3, 4, 5 weeks without a drink, and then I might have a drink every weekend for the next like 3 weeks because there's more like social things coming up. But like I have a limit, and it's not, and the come from has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that, mate. Yeah. It's good to add that in. Mate, we've covered a lot here, and just with an eye on the time, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of maybe health coaching, or in terms of your life coaching, or in terms of like men's health? As we sort of sum this up, I think it's been great. The vision, the values, the goal setting, the behavior change, all these different things that we've covered. It's been awesome. But the floor is yours, mate. Is there anything else you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to add that if this conversation has piqued your interest, my invitation for you is to create space and slow down. That's and listen to, I know this might sound a bit woo woo, but like listen to your heart. Like ask yourself the question, what do I want? And the answer may not arise immediately, but if you cast it out and ask yourself maybe in the morning, what do I want? And those answers will start to arrive, and then you can start to write those down, start to unpack them, start to explore them. And this is slowly how you start to create your vision or your North Star, and how you allow your purpose potentially to start to come through. And when you can start to get on purpose and be on purpose and live in a purposeful way that is aligned with your values, like life does become a lot easier and more joyful. And that's from my own experience, like having made multiple like transitions in my life, and not just in career, but like really in my way of being. And so that's my invitation to our listeners is create that space. And I know it can be difficult, and I know that the guys that we're talking to, are busy, got a lot of responsibilities, a lot is demanded of you. But do it for yourself, because by doing that for yourself, it will impact everybody around you. The way you show up and how you are from doing this work is not just going to benefit you, it will benefit every single person that you come into contact with, everybody. And it also starts to model possibility for others. So once you do that work, like, you affect everybody around you, but you also give permission to other people to do the same. So please take that time to do it.
Yeah. Mate, I love that. I think it's really great, really powerful. And I also like what you sort of said there too, and the fact that you've done it multiple times in your life. And we've heard that story. And I think it's a key point to recognize that the visions and values that maybe you set now, like let's say the vision and values that you set in your 20s, are very different to maybe the visions and values in your 30s and 40s and 50s. And
100%.
that's fine. Like, things
Yeah.
are allowed to change, and we're allowed to move that North Star, and it's going to align with our life, where we're living, our environment, our family, our friends, like all the people around us. And it just has such a broad impact on just every part of our health, I think. So it's been great to chat, Caspar, and I really appreciate, your time and the message that you've shared today. It's been really valuable. If people want to reach out and connect with you, do some coaching with you, whereabouts can they find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on my social media, Instagram, over anything else. My handle is coaching with Caspar, and that's Caspar with an AR. People often confuse it with an ER, but coaching with Caspar. I've got some content there that people can check out. There's a link on my Instagram page to my website. But if this conversation is sparked some interest and ignited some more questions, please feel free to drop me a message. I'd love to have a conversation. And yeah, just want to finish off by thanking you, Stretch, for creating the opportunity for me to share with you all.
Oh, mate, it's been awesome. I really appreciate your time, and it's going to be great to have you on board with like the Midlife Mavericks and helping us out with that, especially with all the vision and goal setting, behavior change, all the stuff that we're going to be able to create in the future. And it's been great for you to jump on the podcast and let people hear your story and what you're about, and some of your expertise and some of what you do. And I think people are going to get a lot out of this episode. So thanks again, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks for tuning in to the Midlife Mavericks podcast. Remember, your journey to optimal health and vitality doesn't end here. You're just getting started. Keep embracing the mindset of a maverick. Stay committed to your visions, values, and goals. Continue taking meaningful steps towards a life filled with energy, purpose, and fulfillment. Until next time, keep thriving and living life on your own terms.